Hi, this is Ray of RV Tech Tools, and I wanted to do this video for you because I'm just about to release version 2.0.1 of RV Dash. Now, normally I try very hard to make sure that new releases are completely backwards compatible with old releases and their settings. In this particular case, I had to make an exception to that rule, and you're going to run into an issue when you first download and install 2.0.1 from the App Store. Now take heart, it's very easy to fix, and I'm going to show you in this video a couple of different ways to fix it, and you'll be on your way working with the new version shortly. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm running the new version here. I just downloaded it. It's just like if you installed it from the web page. It's actually connecting right now to a real CanPod, and it's running, except if you look closely in the top right and top left corner, the two transmission gauges are not working. Now, we need to fix that, and there are two different ways to fix it. One of them is trivial, and let's do that one first. So if you're using one of the standard layouts, such as I have here, it's very easy. I'm going to go down and I'm going to tap in the lower right corner, tap the gear icon, and then tap on Reload Defaults. That now will reload the factory files, which I've updated in this release, and it will basically fix the problem. If you look now, the transmission gauges are working just as you would expect. Now, let's think about a different scenario though. If you've got a version from the older version 2.0.0, which came back out in May of last year, well, this could cause a problem because if you've done a lot of customizations, you're not necessarily going to want to go through that again. So let me stop this recording, go back, and let's actually build a customized version in the old code and then move forward and see what happens. I've now loaded the previous version of the code. This is what you would have had from the Apple Store. And I'm getting it started. And we shall see that all of the gauges are working just as you'd expected. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go make a couple of quick customizations to my layout, which is something that you may have done. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to tap on the gear icon, then select Edit Gauges. Now first of all, down in the lower left, I have an intake manifold temperature gauge that I just want to get rid of because my particular coach never sent any of that data, and it's always 0. So I'm going to tap on the X. So we'll go tap on the X here and confirm the removal. Now let's move this gauge over, this one down. Let's go over, center it up. And I want to take this one down and maybe make it a little bigger. Make it a little bigger than that. There we go. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to tap on the gear icon again and select Edit Gauge or Save Gauges, Save Edit. And now you'll see that I've got a different layout. It's the same gauges, but with the placement changes. Now I'm going to go ahead just to show you. I'm going to not only kill this release, I'm going to double click, throw it out of memory, so it's definitely killed. We don't need that either. And now I'm going to restart RV Dash. And if you'll notice, it does indeed come up in the layout that we set up previously. And we'll let it get started to make sure that it's still working. Okay, so you see it's come up. Everything's working as expected. Now I'm going to kill this. I'm going to go into my developer app and I'm going to load the new version of the code. This is equivalent to what you would do when you go to the App Store and download and update a new one. So now my app here is the new version. I'm going to go ahead and start it. You'll see that it remembered because it used the customized file that you set up earlier. But once it gets going, notice again that the transmission gauges upper left and right are not functioning. This is the same problem we saw earlier. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go change that without having to redo all these edits. Imagine if you had changed, 2 or 3 or 5 of those gauges and changed the color and the warning values and all that. It would be a real pain to have to re-edit all of those gauges. When all we really need to do is tell those 2 gauges that are broken, what actual device is sending this information. And that's the major change between the previous build and this build, is that the early builds ignored whichever device, and it simply looked for a particular message, in this case like transmission oil or transmission RPM, and it didn't care which device sent it. This caused problems later, and I'll show this in another video, but now we need to listen to what device is coming in. So very simply, we're going to go in and tap on the gear icon again, select Edit Gauges. Now I'm going to tap and hold originally here on the upper right gauge, the transmission oil temperature. Tap and hold for 2 seconds, and that will open this gauge in the gauge editor. So I'll tap it, hold it, and you'll see this come up. Now, it's not really important to understand all of what we're seeing here. I'll give you a quick rundown. The MID is the mid, or is the actual device that is sending information. Every message that comes down the CAN bus has a device and a PID, which is the device ID of the message that's coming down. In this case, a PID value of 177 indicates that the following data will be the transmission oil temperature. Now, the mid device of 128 is the engine device. This is the default now, but obviously transmission information probably is transmitted from the transmission, not from the engine. So I'm going to tap on the number 128 and simply back out the 28 and change that to 130. Tap Next, and now you'll see that the gauge is actually working. This is still running data over the CAN pod. And now I'll just simply tap on Update Gauge, and that goes back into the main screen that you're working on with that change. Now we're going to do the same thing on the left-hand gauge, the transmission RPM. I'll tap and hold for 2 seconds, which brings it up now in the gauge editor. I'm going to tap on the 128, edit out the 28, bring in 30, and now you'll notice that the transmission output speed is now working as well. So, update gauge. Come in here, and to make it stick, you simply need to tap the gear menu and then save edit. To make sure that this is going to stick, I'll go ahead and kill it. In fact, I'll throw it all the way out of memory and then rerun the app. And you'll see that as we expect, the layout's been maintained. And as soon as we connect to the CAN pod and get going, you'll notice both the transmission gauges are now functional. So that's simple. You go in, select the 2 gauges, change the mid value from 128, change it to 130, and save the gauge, and you're up to date and working again. Now, it's very important to know that the landscape and portrait orientation on these gauges are completely separate files, and if you've changed one, you need to go change the orientation on the device and then go back in and make the same edits or same changes to fix those layouts. Same thing if you're using the slider gauges, those two are independent from these rotational gauges. With one exception, if you do the reload defaults, that will change all of the layouts. Portrait, landscape, and the slider and rotational gauges. So hopefully this will help answer your questions. My next video is going to show you why I had to make this non-compatible change, and I think it's a good idea, and I think you'll be glad that we did this. So let me know if you have any issues. You can reach me at any time at support@rvtechtools.com. Thank you very much, and I sure appreciate it.